You ever buy something you worked your whole damn life for? Picture it down to the sunrise off the deck and the sound of nothing but wind and water in the morning. And then realize the hardest battle of your life wasn't the fighting you already lived through, but the quiet war somebody decides to bring to your front porch. Just because they hate not being in charge? Yeah, that was me, the day a woman in a cream blazer tried to annex my lake. I'd spent 15 years in naval intelligence, not the glamorous movie kind, but the quiet grind of details, patterns, paperwork that could make or break entire missions. And when I finally hung that badge up, all I wanted was silence, space, the smell of pine after rain, and water still enough to see the sky twice. So I bought 5 acres tucked in the foothills, a place where the pines stood tall like old sentinels, and the lake stretched out smooth as polished glass, private deed in hand, stamped by the county clerk herself. Lake frontage included, outside the HOA red line by an easy 200 meters. I didn't even unpack the last box before I walked down to that waterfront my first morning, boots crunching over damp needles, the air cool enough to sting a little as it filled my lungs. I stood there just breathing, watching the light peel itself over the ridge like the world was waking up just for me. And I swear I felt a piece of myself uncoil that I hadn't realized was wound-tight all those years. And then a voice behind me sliced through the morning like someone slamming a file drawer in a church. "You don't own this lake." I turned, and there she was, Marlene Kinsley, HOA president of Pinewood Hollow, striding down my gravel path like she was about to audit my existence. Hair pulled so tight it looked like it hurt, blazer buttoned like she was testifying in front of Congress, leather portfolio tucked under her arm, as if paperwork alone could manifest power. She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile you see right before someone tells you why you're wrong. "Morning," I said, "because manners don't cost anything. Something I can help you with." "I'm the president of the Pinewood Hollow Homeowners Association," she announced, like I'd asked about her title, "and I need to go over some community guidelines with you." "I'm not part of the HOA," I replied gently, lifting the folder in my hand. "Property line ends up there at the bend." I made sure before buying. You could have sworn I'd slapped her with a fish. She blinked once, twice, then pulled in a breath like she was preparing to deliver a verdict. "The lake is a shared community resource. Any modifications to the waterfront must be approved by the association." I tapped the deed. "Lake is private to the parcel. It predates the HOA by 12 years. County surveyed, boundary marked, signed 3 times, and notarized twice." She didn't even look at the papers. That's when I first knew. This wasn't about confusion. This was about control. There's a look power-hungry people get when you don't bow on cue. A little tightening at the edges of the eyes like someone just moved their cheese, and now the universe has betrayed them. "People who don't respect community standards," she said, voice dropping 10 degrees, "tend to find life here very difficult. People who threaten neighbors tend to find lawyers very expensive." I said back, not angry, just matter of fact, because I wasn't raised to bark first. Silence fell between us then, heavy, like 2 chess players halfway through a game neither one intends to lose. She turned and left, heels crunching on gravel like gavel strikes, and I stood there, staring at the lake, thinking maybe that was the end of it. People get bold on a first meeting sometimes. Ego flares, pride bruises, and they go home and cool off. It happens. But 3 days later, a white envelope sat in my mailbox stamped HOA violation notice, Section 7.3, with a neat little fine of $500 and another $100 per day until compliance, whatever that meant. Except there was one problem. There was no Section 7.3. I knew it before I checked. You get a nose for forged authority in this line of life. But I sat at my kitchen table anyway, flipping through the covenant book like it was a field manual, and sure enough, Section 7 ended at 7.2. She invented a rule, manufactured it, printed it, signed it, tried to enforce it. I almost admired the boldness, in the same way you admire a toddler who drags a chair across the kitchen to steal cookies from the top shelf. Bold, determined, and absolutely doomed the moment anyone taller walks in. Then I saw the signature at the bottom, Michael Richardson, HOA Legal Division, and my old habits kicked in. When you've spent over a decade verifying information under penalty of national security, you don't ignore details like that. Quick county bar search revealed no such attorney. 0 records. 0 credentials. Phantom lawyer. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't march to her door. I just called my real estate attorney, sent him a scan, and then did what I was trained to do when the ground starts to shift: secure the perimeter. By Monday, 12 compact dome cameras covered every angle of entry, night vision capable, cloud synced, silent as owls. The neighbors probably thought I was paranoid. Truth was, I just believed in receipts. Wednesday morning, on my way out to restock pantry staples, because nothing says civilization like eggs, coffee, and a working freezer, I saw 3 more notices taped to my gate, bright yellow like someone trying to mark me for culling. Improper vehicle storage. My truck was in the garage. Lawn not maintained. I'd moved in days ago. The grass looked like a golf course. Unauthorized exterior modifications. Unless breathing counted, I hadn't altered a damn thing. I checked the cameras. 6:22 a.m. Marlene's white sedan. Latex gloves. Folder under her arm like she was performing a forensic exam on my fence. Tape, tape, tape. Smooth, confident, like she'd done this before, probably successfully, against someone who didn't know how to push back. Then she drove off without a single glance back. There's a point in every conflict where the line between irritation and mission shifts. For me, that was it. That subtle click in the mind, the okay, we're doing this moment. I didn't rip the papers down. I didn't even touch them. Evidence belongs untouched. I called my attorney again. Logged timestamps. Stored video backups in redundant encrypted drives. Then I went down to the water, leaned on the railing, and let the ripples steady me. Humor found me then, in a tired, ironic way. I chuckled out loud, shaking my head at the absurdity of it. I'd briefed commanders on threats halfway across the globe, tracked hostile movements in cities most maps don't bother printing, and the biggest battle of my retirement was with a woman who believed her clipboard outranked property law. But humor fades, and instinct steps in. The quiet space in your chest that knows when something isn't just petty. It's a pattern. A pattern of entitlement, escalation, false authority, and someone who'd rather rewrite reality than accept limits. I locked the gate that night and double-checked the cloud backups before bed, not because I was afraid, but because when you see a storm coming, you don't stand outside and hope it misses. You board the windows, tie down the boats, and wait. And as I lay there, staring at the ceiling washed in moonlight, I thought about the look in her eyes when I told her no, that cold, brittle flash of disbelief turning into indignation. The moment control slips, and pride chooses war instead of retreat. Peace isn't the absence of trouble, it's knowing you can handle it. And I had a feeling Marlene wasn't done. If anything, she was just getting started. The thing about people addicted to control is they don't retreat, they regroup, they reload, and they show back up convinced the world misheard them the first time. And sure enough, 4 days later, I walked out with a mug of coffee just in time to see the sun catching on bright orange mesh fencing stretched across my northern shoreline, like someone had tried to wrap my lake in caution tape. Orange barricade. Metal stakes hammered every 10 feet. A wooden sign swinging in the breeze like some kind of bureaucratic totem. HOA property. No trespassing, pending approval. I just stood there on my gravel driveway, coffee halfway up to my lips, staring at that fence like the universe had lost its damn mind. A squirrel on a branch above me paused like even he didn't know what to make of this level of audacity. You ever have a moment where the absurd becomes almost beautiful? Like watching a car pile up in slow motion, except it's made of clipboards and inflated ego? Yeah, that was me. I took a long sip, let the bitterness ground me, and checked the timestamp on my phone, then flipped open the camera feeds. There they were. 7:43 a.m. 2 guys in a white pickup unloading fencing like they were prepping for a parade. 29 minutes later, Marlene arrives. Gets out, arms crossed, supervising like she was commissioning the Hoover Dam. Clear as day. Make sure it looks official. We need people to think twice. That's the thing about narcissists. They don't just want to win, they want the illusion to hold. I called non-emergency dispatch. The officer who came out walked the fence with me, kicking a stake with his boot, eyebrows climbing like they were trying to leave his forehead. She did this. I played the footage. His jaw flexed. We've had complaints before, he muttered. Which, in cop language, means oh great, she's at it again. Want to press charges? He asked. There's a quiet moment before certain decisions, where you feel the air shift, like the story you're in is turning a page. I nodded once. Yes. He wrote the report. took photos, cleared me to remove the fence. And while he walked to his cruiser, I picked up the first metal stake and started pulling. Sweat, dirt, metal clanging against wood. Every yank felt like ripping weeds out by the roots. Necessary, ugly, cathartic. I stacked it all neatly by the driveway, because petty or not, evidence still needs to look presentable in court. By sunset, all that remained was torn earth and my patience held together by legal filings and caffeine. You'd think that'd slow her down, right? Wrong. The next morning, 6 strangers stood on my shoreline with folding chairs, coolers, fishing rods, Bluetooth speaker blasting country music like it was tailgate Sunday. I walked down calm, hands loose at my sides. Morning. Can I help you? A woman in a sun hat blinked at me like a deer realizing the headlights are real. This is the new community dock access point, right? HOA email said it opened. I pulled up my map, showed the line. This isn't HOA land. It's mine. Apologies spilled. Chairs folded. Cooler lids snapped shut like guilty little mouths. One guy muttered, "Why would she lie about something like that?" And I almost laughed, but not the funny kind. The tired, "What did you think was happening here?" kind. When they left, the quiet felt heavier. Manipulate rules? Sure. Manipulate people? That's escalation with teeth. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. His response came quick. Time to file a full suit. She's not just harassing you. She's mobilizing the neighborhood. This ends in court. And just when I thought the chessboard was set, Marlene made her first overt strike. Phone rang that evening. "You had me summoned to court," she hissed, voice sharp like a razor dipped in entitlement. "You have no idea what you've done." "Actually," I said, "stirring pasta like this was a friendly chat. I know exactly what I did. Press charges for trespassing and property damage. You'll receive details from the court." Dead silence. Then, "You think paperwork protects you? This community has standards." I let her talk till she ran out of steam, then ended the call and logged it. Evidence isn't emotional, it's strategic. By midnight, another letter. Thick paper, expensive envelope, one chilling sentence inside. "You've made a terrible mistake." Funny how threats always look weaker once archived in a folder labeled Exhibit A. Saturday, an old man knocked. Mr. Calloway, soft eyes, decades of quiet wisdom in his posture. "She's holding an emergency HOA meeting tonight," he whispered, like HOA business had suddenly become CIA intel. "She's telling everyone you're endangering community values." "You going?" I asked. "I have to," he sighed. "I'm on the architectural committee." "But Fletcher," "You're right. She knows it. She just can't accept it." People don't go to war over rules. They go to war over ego. That night, I drove by the clubhouse. Cars packed like election day. Through the window, I saw Marlene at the podium, gesturing like a general addressing troops. Her eyes glittered with something between zeal and madness. I didn't stop, didn't go in, just filmed the scene, date-stamped it, then drove home to my silent house and my lake catching the last gold of dusk. Peace still lived here. She just didn't like that it wasn't hers to control. 3 days later, the storm turned tactical. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion alert. I opened the feed half asleep, and there it was. 2 figures moving through the dark. Marlene, unmistakable even in grainy moonlight. A man beside her, same build as one of the fence workers. Measuring wheel. Clipboard. Whispered voices. Natural boundaries shift. County won't question if we document the water line. They weren't just trespassing. They were manufacturing evidence. 47 minutes. Every second recorded. They left like thieves, silent, paranoid, convinced they were brilliant. Morning came, and she called the police claiming I was trespassing on HOA land. The officer arrived, weary like a man who'd seen stupidity weaponized before. I handed him my phone. He watched in silence, then asked to see it again. By noon, the state police were involved. And when the lead detective introduced himself, his voice held something familiar, a ghost from a past life. "Fletcher? It's Bannister. Troy Bannister. Naples. 7th Intel Group. Long time. The universe has a sense of humor." He reviewed the footage. All of it. Low whistle. "This isn't HOA drama anymore. This is criminal conspiracy." For the first time since this all began, my shoulders loosened a fraction. I wasn't alone anymore. The cavalry didn't ride in with horses. They showed up with badges, law degrees, and the patience of men who've seen enough nonsense for one lifetime. And deep inside, past the irritation, the sarcasm, the tactical calm, something old and familiar settled into place. Mission mode, but with sunlight instead of sand, pine instead of dust, and a lake instead of a war zone. The battle wasn't physical. It wasn't loud. But make no mistake, it was war. And I wasn't losing my peace, or my lake, to a clipboard tyrant who never learned the difference between authority and ownership. The thing about documenting every single second, every whisper in the dark, every forged notice, every orange fence stake hammered into soil she didn't own, is eventually, reality stacks so high it collapses fake power like a rotten pier under too much weight. And sure enough, the day came when the blue lights showed up not for me, not because she'd spun some tale, but because the truth finally weighed more than her delusion. I was sipping coffee on my porch when I heard the horns, voices raised down by the road, a crowd gathering again, chants floating through the pines like some bizarre neighborhood protest mixtape. Protect the lake, protect the community. I stepped inside, checked my cameras. There she was, center stage, megaphone in hand, hair pulled tight like stress had become her personality, yelling about public resources and community rights like she was auditioning for a HOA-themed revolution. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just hit record. Then, two unmarked cruisers rolled up quiet as judgment. Lieutenant Bannister got out first, calm like a man delivering scripture. He spoke low, firm. People listened. The crowd stilled. The megaphone lowered. And then I saw it. That tiny flicker in her eyes. Confusion sliding into recognition, sliding into fear, sliding into the thing people like her refused to name. Consequences. Her voice cracked as she tried to spin it. This is harassment. I am exercising my civic. Troy lifted his paperwork like a hammer. Marlene Kinsley, you have the right to remain silent. Silence. Pure, clean, honest silence. She froze, mouth open, megaphone hanging limp. And the crowd, these neighbors she weaponized, took a collective step back, like reality had just slapped them too. The cuffs clicked. I didn't cheer, didn't rush out. I just watched from behind glass as ego met gravity. Because justice isn't loud, not really. It's steady, heavy, inevitable when patience meets preparation. They took her in. She got processed. But like all stories with villains who think rules don't apply to them, she came back out, just long enough to prove everyone right. 2 nights later my power died. Snap, like someone flicked the universe off. Then the water cut. Backup batteries humming like quiet soldiers. Night vision confirming the truth. Marlene, jacket hood up, bolt cutters in hand beside her brother, crouched by my panel talking about teaching him a lesson. Even then, I didn't go outside. Didn't shout. Didn't turn on a light. Just filmed, time-stamped, archived. The law likes receipts. I had a library. By sunrise, warrants were signed. They hauled her back again. And still, delusion is a persistent disease. It doesn't die easy. It mutates. When she got released the next time, on electronic monitoring, I swear the world held its breath to see if she'd finally stop, or if we were dealing with something deeper than control, obsession, entitlement with teeth. Saturday morning, 10:15 a.m., a knock rattled my door. Firm, official, like someone who thinks authority is whatever outfit they wear. I checked the feed, and there she stood again. Fake uniform, fake badge, clipboard, confidence of someone who mistook imagination for law. 3 men flanking her like discount deputies. Toy handcuffs, still in the packaging. I don't scare easily, but I'll tell you this. There are moments where surreal becomes almost spiritual, and you realize madness can dress itself in order and still be chaos at its core. I didn't open the door, just said calm as lake water, badge and warrant, please. Her voice hardened. We don't need to show you anything. Step outside or we'll enter. My thumb hit call. Bannister answered on the second ring. She's here, I whispered. In uniform. Don't move. Units en route. Sirens rose in the distance, growing louder, faster, sharper. She panicked. You could see it break across her face like glass. She tried to retreat, but cruisers boxed them in like choreography. Guns drawn, lowered but ready. Orders barked, knees hitting pavement, wrists cuffed for real this time. Her badge clattered on asphalt like a cheap lie meeting hard truth. Someone in the HOA crowd whispered. What was she thinking? Oh, she wasn't. She was believing, and that's worse. Her eyes found my window as they loaded her in. rage, disbelief, pure wounded pride. But behind it all, finally, fear. Because the world wasn't bending anymore. This time there was no bail, no warnings, just cold bars and courtrooms. The trial came quick. Federal charges have a way of sharpening schedules. Full courtroom, jury tight with attention, screens showing night footage, fence footage, forged letters, fake uniforms. Her brother testifying. Prosecutors laying out her crusade like an anatomy lesson in obsession. The verdict hit like a quiet bell. Guilty. Every count. 18 months federal. 6 more concurrent. Probation. Restitution. Lifetime ban from HOA positions. Poetic justice, if you ask me. She stood there small, shrunken, like the edges of her reality had crumbled, and she didn't know how to live without the illusion of control. And I didn't gloat, didn't smirk. I just exhaled for the first time in months. When it was truly over, when the dust settled, when her supporters evaporated, when the neighborhood realized what power really looks like, spoiler, it's legal, not loud. I did the thing that set all this off in the first place. I built the dock, 50 feet, composite boards, clean lines that caught the sunset, and a sign, carved wood, simple, honest. Dalton Private Dock, community access by permission. Then I mailed every neighbor a letter. No fees for good neighbors. 12 families came by. We shook hands, signed agreements. Kids now fish off my dock. Folks wave as they paddle by. Peace breathes again here. Sometimes control doesn't win. Sometimes patience does. And sometimes the lake stays quiet because one person refused to surrender calm to chaos. Now when I sit on that dock, sun dropping behind the pines, breeze moving across the water whispering nothing but peace, I think about how thin the line is between someone trying to own you and you standing firm enough to remind them they never could. Freedom isn't loud. It's steady, documented, patient, and very, very real. All right, your turn. You ever dealt with a HOA tyrant? Ever seen somebody try to enforce power they never had? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me who was right, who was wrong, and whether you'd have handled it different. And hey, smash that like if you've ever had to defend your peace from someone who just couldn't mind their own property line. Because sometimes you don't pick the war. Sometimes the clipboard shows up at your gate, and you just make sure the cameras are rolling.